Alright, part two, where we are going to discuss how to do the Photoshop manipulation of these layers to create a nice terrain map with this fire incident on top of it. And then from there you guys can add the label and the scale bar and all that good stuff, the title. So, the first thing we want to do is we want to make a copy of our hillshade layer. I made one before here as my backup, but since I don't really need that anymore, I will just go ahead and use this as my layer. So I'll say hillshade 2. Okay. And then if we go back and look at these directions, I just want to make sure I'm precise in my directions. So what we're going to do first is open the curves panel on our hillshade 2 layer, which is Command M or Control M, and we want to change the input value to 195. And this is going to take all of the flat areas and the flat and illuminated areas are those things that are on the north and east sides of our map, and turn them a little bit more white. Alright, so let's put this at the top so we know what we're working with. And then I'm going to make sure that my layer is selected. Command M. This is going to my curves menu. And this is basically saying the pixels between white and black, right? That there's going to be an input of those pixels, right? What does the image show coming in? And an output. I'm going to take this and I'm going to move it. You can move it manually like this, right? For example, there's all sorts of things you can do. We want to keep the output the same. So the output's 255 and the input is about 195. Okay, and that's basically saying these pixels that are between 195 and 255 on our RGB scale from light or on our grayscale, sorry, from dark to light, right? 0 being dark, 255 being light. The ones that are coming in at 195 and above, so the different shades of white that we have, we're just going to kind of flatten all those out so they're all white. Okay, if that makes sense. So basically we want this curves menu to look at this output 255, input 195, and the histogram, kind of the marker in the histogram, to look like this. So hit OK there. And it should look like that. So if we go and compare that to our original hillshade, right, we can see the difference. And I actually want to show something real quick as well, like why we're doing this. So if you go to, most terrain techniques will tell you to lay your land cover, lay your DEM, your hypsometric tint of your DEM on top of a hillshade, and go to some sort of transparency so it looks like something like this, right? So you have some sort of data sitting on top of some sort of texture. And that's fine for like a quick and dirty method, I guess, of showing that information of terrain and land cover in combination with each other. But that's what we're working on and trying to bring out and make that relationship between those two things, right? The underlying terrain and the type of features that sit on top of the terrain. We're trying to make that relationship more compatible visually. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out real quick. So back on our hillshade, we'll go to the one that we just adjusted the curves on. The next thing we want to do is we want to add a layer mask to hillshade 2. So that's easy. We go right here to add layer mask, which is this little square with a circle in it, and that's going to pull up this little white box next to our hillshade. And we can select into this white box by hitting Option, and that'll allow us to select between the two guys here. Okay. So, next thing we want to do is go to our DEM down here, select that, hit Command A, and that's going to select all of it. Command C to copy it. And then we're going to go up here to our hillshade, hit Option, and click into our mask. That's going to bring up this white screen. And then we're going to hit Command V. And what that does, we're pasting the DEM into the mask, and that's going to mask out certain aspects of the hillshade that we've just manipulated. And so if you look at the mask, just to explain the mask real quickly, if we go back where it's white, that basically means that it's completely transparent, right? So if we're looking at our hillshade, right, the mask is not masking anything out because it's completely transparent. Where then if we go into it and we paste the DEM, and now we're going to have this gradient of transparency, or this gradient of opacity that ranges from dark to light, right? And so the white areas is going to come through, and the dark areas is going to be opaque. And there's going to be a gradient between the white and the black. So all these different shades of gray are going to be different gradients of that transparency. So if we click Option and go back into here, right, now we can see what we've done. We've taken, I'll hit Command D to deselect. Right, we've created a set of opacities that go through, or a gradient of opacities and transparencies that come through the hillshade. And so now, we have a nice and more advanced or more nuanced texture that we're working with. If we turn off this DEM behind it, we can see that we're just pulling out particular pieces of our hillshade now, right, and magnifying those while pushing or keeping opaque different aspects. Okay. So now we've completed that part. Let's go back to the instructions to make sure we're doing everything. Copy. Should look like that. Alright, so now let's put hillshade 1 right below that and turn that on. You can see some subtle differences there. And what we want to do is we want to combine hillshade 1 and hillshade 2 together. So we're going to set the blending mode on hillshade 2, which is this right here. Set that to multiply. And right, if you look at this, I'm going to turn this on and off. You can see a subtle difference, not a huge difference at first, when we're just working between these grayscales. But it's an important distinction that I'll show you later why it comes into play. So it's the first step in kind of a multiple iteration of manipulating this DEM in order to, or manipulating this hillshade in order to pull out the shadows, right, and minimize the illuminated sides in order to create a more expressive texture. So we're going to go here, we go up here to this little, so we're going to select our hillshade 2, go to this little menu bar right here, and go to merge down, or Command E, and that's going to take that hillshade manipulation that we did with the mask, and we're going to flatten that into the original hillshade. Okay. So that's step 5. Now we want to put a noise reduction filter, right? This is going to clean up some of the jaggedness and some of the messiness of our hillshade. We'll go in here, make sure our hillshade is selected, filter, noise, median, and we're going to put this at a 2. If we look at 1, if we look at 5, all right, we can see what this filter is doing. 2 is a good space for us to be in. We'll hit OK. Alright, and that's softened up and cleaned up much of our